Hey, do you have any ridiculous and unrealistic fears or irrational fears? Irrational fears. We're gonna go with that. Do you have any irrational fears? Because I do, and I've been learning a lot about it, and so I kind of want to talk to you about it to see if there's anything you can learn from it. Because a lot of times, or at least for me anyway, I thought this irrational fear that I had was just something I was gonna kind of be afraid of forever. And I thought that there was nothing I could do about it. And I'm learning a lot of really cool stuff about it, and I'm actually getting over it, and it's really cool. So my big irrational fear is of demons and spirits and shit, like ghosts and that type of junk. Specifically demons, because I was raised in a family of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was raised to believe that demons are real and they will fucking kill you. Like I was told stories about like demons in some other country, like coming into this family's house and like twisting the kids like heads backwards. And like I was told this, like, I don't know, I must have been like 8 or 9 or something like that. And on top of that, I was told that you can essentially invite demons or the devil into your house by doing something as innocuous as like watching Scooby-Doo. Even though if they would have watched one episode, they would have found out that like it's never really a ghost. It's always some fool in a mask. But it was shit like that. Like the teeny tiniest little thing you do to step out of line could invite demons into your house. And not only could it do that, but if they're there, they can fucking kill you. And it'll be your fault if they do. So I was afraid of this for my entire life. I still am afraid of this. I think about it every day. Every night before bed. Like I live alone for the most part now. Like I do have a roommate, but he spends a lot of time with his girlfriend. And so a lot of times it's like I live alone. And this fear is only bad for me when I'm alone. And like if I have someone else in the room, like I've had long-term girlfriends, and so I'm used to having someone sleeping next to me, and it's not really a problem. But when I sleep alone, that's when I really notice it. And so I decided to put my whole like fears go away if you face them thing to the test when it came to this. And also this idea that anything you're afraid of is actually just a part of yourself. Like you're not afraid of a thing, you're afraid of the emotions associated with it, is this theory that I've been running with for the last like 6 years or so that's worked really, really, really well for me and for my clients. And so I decided to put it to test in this. And so I would notice that I would start feeling like really afraid, you know, like any little noise I would hear, I'd be like, oh, is that what I think it is? Like, is that a thing? Or whenever I would like walk around some dark part of my house by myself, I'd always be all like wigged out. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, what's going to happen? And so I started tuning into it. And I realized that the fear of demons and shit has absolutely nothing to do with demons. It's not the demons I'm afraid of. Like, I just made that up. I had all these other fears that I didn't know how to process and I didn't know how to relate to. And so I was like, you know what they all have in common? They're all bad and scary, and there's not really anything I can do about it. You know what else is bad and scary and I'm essentially helpless against? Demons. I'll be afraid of those. And so as I dug into the thing, I realized that all this fear of demons and ghosts and shit, all it really stems from is my dad dying when I was a kid. And at 7 years old, realizing that bad things can and will happen to you. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And so as I got older, that fear turned into a fear of demons, because one of the interesting things about demons when I describe this fear that I have is that you're essentially helpless. Like, unless you're some kind of like magician or whatever, like if there were to be these types of spirits that could in fact hurt you, and if this horror movie type of situation could actually happen, the fuck you gonna do? Like, you can't punch them, you can't tell them to leave, you can't even lock your doors. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop my nightmare scenario from happening. And it's no mistake that the number one thing I'm afraid of matches my like biggest trauma from a kid, of realizing that, wow, the things you love the most, the things you hold most sacred, can and will be taken away from you, and bad things will happen, and there isn't a single thing that you can do about it. So, like, they mirror and layer on top of each other. And so what I notice is that, you know, when I'm feeling extra courageous or whatever, and I feel this fear, because it's so funny that I moved into a house that has animals that live in the attic upstairs, and I can hear them, and a lot of times they don't sound like animals. The house creaks when it's like windy or cold outside, and the acoustics in the neighborhood are weird. So whenever somebody says something in one of the neighboring houses, it sounds like it's coming from my bedroom or from like somewhere else in the house. And so it sounds like it's in my house. And so I've had plenty of opportunities for this fear to come up and for me to deal with it. And it's just so bizarre that when this fear does come up and I tune into it, I absolutely realize that I am not really afraid of what I think I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of these other things that are way deeper and way more real, but they're so scary. It's so hard to face the inevitability of like death and pain, and just the fact that horrible things can and will happen. And there's nothing you could do about it. Like, that is such a fucked up, terrifying thing to realize, that projecting it as a demon and being afraid of that and doing whatever I can do to protect myself from that fear seems more reasonable. And so it's just so bizarre to me that that's how this goes and that's how this looks. And so I kind of wanted to share this to see if you have any irrational fears, and if you've taken a look at them beneath the surface. Because, I mean, like the first one I could think of is like spiders. Like, I mean, I don't like spiders. I'm not a big fan. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I want to like pet tarantulas and shit. Like, no thanks. I don't want to do that. But I don't see one and I'm not like, oh my God. Like, I'm a little wigged out about bees. Just because, or like hornets, because those motherfuckers will sting you for like no reason, and then you could get attacked by a bunch of them. Like, that's a very real hazard. I feel like it makes sense to be afraid of hornets. But like, my irrational fear is something that we don't even know is real. That I've honestly had very little real world experience to lead me to believe that it is real. And so when it comes to spiders and stuff, like, most of them are harmless. When it comes to like deep water or things like that, a lot of the time there's not really anything there to truly be like petrified of. Like, fear of heights. Like, sure, maybe you could fall, but like, is that really a big deal? Like, I'd be willing to bet that there's something much lower or much deeper under the surface that you're really afraid of. And I just think about what it would be like to be liberated from that deep and a lot of times like all-encompassing fear. Because my fear is one that I can't really get away from, and it's there every night when I go to bed. Like, people that are afraid of heights just live on the ground floor. Don't get a balcony, like, whatever. People that are afraid of spiders or any kind of animal or whatever, you just avoid those animals, you know? Like, that's fairly easy to do. But with mine, like, the impact it was having on my life was really, really fucked up. It was making it so I couldn't sleep. Like, I'm sleeping alone regularly for the first time in like 10 years, and so I was having trouble sleeping. I'd be afraid walking around my house. And so, you know, a lot of times these things can really, really liberate you and allow you to face the world in a brand new way, because the fears aren't what they look like. And taking the time to do some investigating and figure out what's really going on under the surface can give you a clue into some areas of your life that you're not really allowing yourself to be present for and to really see. You know, because like in my case, like, the idea that bad things can happen to you, like, as I learn to accept that, it's really, really cool. Because I stopped being afraid in social situations. I stopped being afraid of being honest. I stopped being afraid of being myself and showing the world who I am. Because it's like, yeah, you know what, bad things could happen. People, like, anything could happen at any given moment. Cool. Like, why be afraid of that? Like, if that's an inevitability, if that's just a fact of life, it doesn't make sense to be afraid of it. And so there's just a lot that opens up when you can face your deepest fears. And I really want to encourage you to do that. You know, I mean, do it in a safe environment, of course, you know, because a lot of times these things can be brought on by trauma. And so if it feels overwhelming, like, get some help. But I don't know. I guess I just wanted to share this with you. Like, do you have a fear like this? Have you looked underneath the surface? Like, what kind of impacts is it having on you? Like, what's it like for you to have this? Something like this. And what would your life be like if you didn't have it? Like, what are the other areas of your life that it's impacting? And can you do a little bit of work to see if you can free yourself from this? Do you want help? Because if you do want help, all you got to do is send me a message. And I'll get on the phone with you and we'll talk about it. And we'll see if I can help. Because when it comes to stuff like this deep, there's a chance I may not be able to help because I'm just not trained for it. But if it's like stuff that you can manage, then yeah, I absolutely want to help. And I can help you figure out if you need help. So anyway, I love you. Thanks for being here. I hope this was interesting. It was fun. So I hope this is interesting for you. I love you. See you next time. Let me find my thing. There we go.